I'm not gonna worry about your level of concern.
Yoy and double yoy.
We talking about
Twitter.
Triple yoy.
Think of how stupid the average person is, and then realize half of them are stupider than that.
Quadruple yoy.
Oh my God! They killed Kenny! You bastards!
Listen, I trust Mike T wholeheartedly, man.
I don't send messages, I just make moves. It is a pebble in my shoe.
The pebble in your shoe is the podcast that you're listening to. It's What Jin's talking about. The conversation about the Steelers' social media conversation. Exposing all your hot and toxic takes. I'm Kyle Kreis. High on top of Universal City, USA. Across from me is I'm in the frozen tundra of the Hollywood Hills. Across from me at the Malibu Beach is Greg Benevent.
Hello. I figured I would wear a shirt today that did not include the name of a player who could be traded by the time you consume this podcast.
Right, Pickensburg. Have you already sold that shirt? On eBay?
That's going to be with my Boomin '84 shirt somewhere in my closet.
Boomin, Boomin AB. I thought you had like an 80 team 84. I was like, that was a good season.
Oh no, that would have been something my old man's that I would have hung on to. My 60 Minute Men, my Big Nasty D shirt. I mean, those ones have a different place of honor in my mother's basement.
Yeah, I still regret I don't have Pittsburgh Runs the North, I think, from just a couple years ago.
I think I have one of those, and I also have the One Not Done shirt from when they were one and done.
But hey, I'm the one sitting here with Kenny Pickett Funko. So
I tried to tell him off air. Well, you could tell people it was Tommy Maddox, and then Kyle had to say, "Greg, they have his name on the back."
I will, if I can find a small enough paintbrush, maybe I will make this a Maddox, make it a tribute to 2002, the great season,
the Tommy gun,
which is the best use of number 8 now, as we
so
sing.
Far they could draft a kid. You never know.
As you can tell, in a week like this past week, there are no hot and toxic takes. Not everything is thrown out the window.
It really is.
You cannot say something that is off the Richter scale at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But luckily for us, in the second half, this is going to be a short one. We may not even play halves. We may just play. What do they play in soccer? We may just play.
They play halves.
They play halves. Okay.
I mean, they do.
Well,
but it's maybe we have less injury time.
Yeah, maybe all injury time. Maybe this is only injury time in the second half. When last week when we introduced the insider scorecard, I thought, oh man, maybe it's a monthly thing. I didn't think that I would have to bust it out again already.
Or almost every day.
Yeah. But people are talking, and they think that they can get away with it in this time of turmoil. But I am there catching receipts like Jose Lean.
Nice.
So that means I've got them all, 99% rate.
Chico.
We'll get into what the insiders are now trying to claim, post-remodernist history.
The insiders have a lot of insight after something has happened.
Which is fine. I'm fine with that in the historical context or something. But we're getting some. I don't know what this is. What is this? It seems to have an agenda. I guess when you lose your future starting franchise quarterback, maybe we all have an agenda.
Mm-hmm.
But that's coming up in the second half. This is already an intro too long. Let's get to takes. Let's do it. There are toxic takes.
Mm-hmm.
Starting with. It's not. I mean, this isn't toxic. It's like I'm still kind of mind blown. We're trying to move on so quickly. It's like, oh, what wide receiver are we gonna get? What who are we gonna draft in 2025? No, it's like we're not really digesting the full seismic shock of what has happened. Let's Let's go to at Chris Mueller, PGH, Chris Mueller. Imagine telling a Steelers fan 2 weeks ago that they'd be seeing this picture tweeted out, and there it is. It's Kenny Quesadilla Pickett at the Eagles press conference. It's like, what? How did this happen? You know, this is I'm still kind of in a. It's close to. I don't know. It's the same. It's similar to a feeling of mourning.
Yes.
Whereas I don't think it's really hit. It's really
No.
What's happened. This is something that has never. This is a seismic shock. This is like when Thanos snapped the fingers in Avengers. This is before and after this KP. This is something we've never seen. We used to say the biggest mistake a franchise can make is screwing up your number one drafted rookie quarterback, you know? And here we are in the midst of that. This is what other teams did, and here
Yes.
we are in the middle of it right now.
Oh,
you know?
yes, absolutely. I mean, this is what quarterback purgatory is. Either you drafted the wrong guy or you drafted the right guy, and you couldn't develop him. And this could be either way, but I think you're 100% correct, and you and I have talked about this, is that this is a period of mourning. I mean, I was very depressed all of Friday, and I think that sense of shock went into Saturday. I also think that a lot of the people thinking about, hey, what wide receiver are they going to get? Is there anyone other than a 7th-round draft pick who played 2 snaps to do snapping of the ball? And I think a lot of those are coping mechanisms, and that's fine. That's healthy. As a fan, there's nothing wrong with that. But that this is a genuine shock is a very real thing, particularly for those of us that thought and continue to think that Pickett can become a quality starter in the league.
Well, because this wasn't even, there was no writing on the wall really for this. This was, it's like, I can't believe that this would kind of just a give up, take my ball, and go home type of moment.
Yeah, I think either you or several others put it best in the way of that it's hard to believe this kind of person is who Kenny was, because this is so incongruous with what we were told. Now, in the past week, once Wilson had been signed as like an edgy hot take on podcast after podcast, and certainly on Twitter, people would say like, geez, can you imagine Pickett asking for a trade? And it was always most times presented that way, as an impossibility, something very far off and unlikely. And and then by Friday afternoon, there we were.
I somewhat resent that.
I just, this isn't some. I mean, you can look at AB. It was almost writing on the wall for AB. This has got to be the most shocking Steeler moment, not since like Mel Blount sued Chuck Noll back in the Dynasty offseason. I mean, I can't think of something that's on that same level. AB is the only other thing.
AB is the only one, just because AB specifically refused to play. I mean, that's not showing up for a game. Is like, whatever complaints you may have with Pickett, that's not what happened. But yeah, I think the fact that you had to reach so far back for something that I don't even think I was alive for shows just how shocking and stunning this is.
And as exciting as it is to have, I'm excited to have Russ, and I'm excited to have Fields, even though, you could argue, many are arguing now that what is there to be excited about, but to lose on your number one first round draft pick quarterback, to give up on it after 2 years, and I don't think that this was like this conversation between Tomlin and Kenny seems to be this fork in the road moment. I can't imagine before that when it was, we're going to let there be competition at camp, to I want to trade, I want out of here. It's almost like in that moment, could anything has gone differently? The word that they're using is that Tomlin said that Russ is going to be in the pole position, which isn't even that all definitive of a right. It's like, the pole position. Well, sure, there's 54 cars in the stock race,
Right. And again, I know nothing about car racing, but I mean, the pole position, that's just who starts in the front literally before the race.
Yeah, right before the.
I mean, that's just how the race begins, and it's and in all honesty, that's, as a competitor, don't you want that? To have, I mean, sure, it'd be great to be like, hey, you're the guy and we're building everything around you for an ever and ever, amen. But don't you want, as a competitor, to be like, hey, I can beat that guy. He's just starting there. I've been here longer. I can do this. I can beat him.
Yeah, I'll give you that. You know, it literally went from the ultimate hero's journey in an instant to it's like turn yellow and turn tail or something. I don't know what the analogy there for that.
Right. I mean, I forget who brought it up, but it was a good point. But, wherever Kenny went, he probably wasn't going to get a better opportunity to start than this, regardless of what happened in any conversation with Tomlin or Khan or whatever TJ Watt and Minka said on Zoom or in the group chat with Russ. This was what better, who's going to be easier to beat out there? Geno Smith, Will Levis. I mean, and those guys are younger than Russ, so no, there was no better opportunity to start than this one.
It's still surreal. It looks like it's a different timeline or something.
Yes,
we woke up
it
one
is.
day and you literally could have been on a cruise or something and woke up one day not knowing that the quarterback situation had completely changed.
Oh, yeah, what? Or even if you were, like, say, an adult that doesn't check social media throughout your workday on Friday, that would be a different world when you got in the car.
All right, let's keep these. I don't know. I just need to talk about it a little bit more
fine.
because I'm not ready to move on to wide receivers or.
We have plenty of off season for that.
Yeah, well, believe me, the mock draft Steeler Google alert is on. It's on
no.
and it's arriving.
Badness all around.
Let's move on to Brooke Pryor. Less than 2 years ago, crowds at Acrisure were loudly chanting Kenny to urge the Steelers to play the first-round pick. Now Permanis is offering $25 gift cards in exchange for his jersey. That's more than the draft pick, I think, that the Eagles had to give up for him. Have we ever seen anything? I mean, I can't think of any. Barry Bonds leaving town. I can't think of anything that's kind of close to exactly like from chanting his name to selling his jersey for a sandwich.
I mean, the closest you get, and it's not nearly the same thing because he wasn't as beloved, but he came far more hated, was Marion Hossa when he helped power the Penguins to the finals in 2008 to lose to the Red Wings, and then said he was going to sign. It seemed like he was going to sign a long-term deal with the Penguins, and then signed a long-term deal with the Red Wings. But that's, that was a quiet check man with no personality whatsoever versus the face of a franchise. I mean, no, just because I can't think of another time in Pittsburgh history. It's not like if you showed up with your '84 jersey at Permani Brothers, they were giving you a gift certificate.
Yeah. I think AB might be more beloved right now than Kenny Pickett in this moment. AB, Lev Bell, Ken Pickett. I think that. I think AB might be the most beloved.
Of those three, yes. I mean, until he commits his next crime. But yes, AB is certainly funny on Twitter now sometimes, yeah.
Okay, how about let's move on to I couldn't even get I can't even get a Permanis. Can I get a Permanis for this Funko? I couldn't even get a reply back when I tweeted at Permanis for what can I get for my Funko? I bought this instead of the TJ Watt one. This is how much that preseason tricked me. I was let me get the Kenny Funko instead of the TJ Funko. TJ's only I'm only on here talking about how TJ might be the greatest Steeler of all time.
Right.
But am I going to get his Funko? No, let me get the Kenny Pickett Funko.
I mean, it's unless you have unless you do it like Christmas or something, the Steelers tree of misfit toys or something, like then you can put the AB ornament, Kenny, maybe if you have a Barry Bonds one, that kind of thing.
Yeah, does anyone have a 3D printer? I can make a Lima Swede Christmas ornament, please.
Or if they make a Pickens one, you can get the same guy that paints over your Pickett to paint that name too.
Shoot, should I start? I'll start the Cleveland jersey with number 8. It'll just be like Maddox, Pickett. That's it, I guess. Anyone else? I don't know. Okay. Oh, okay. That's right. Back to the takes. That's right. At D. Acrisure, Dr. Acrisure. RIP to the worst QB room of all time, 2022 to 2024, and it's Mace, Kenny, and Mitchell Trubisky. And I'm like, wow, is it really the worst Steeler quarterback room of all time? And so, of course, I had to go dig it up. I was like, what could this compare to?
This person is very young.
Well, let's look back to 88 and 89. That's when it was like Bubby and Todd Blackledge. And they were, in 88, Steelers were 21st in the league in passing yards, 20th in TDs. So that's kind of better than the Kenny and Mason era.
Absolutely. I wasn't around for that, but I will say, whatever clips I've seen, Bubby had a great arm. Probably a better arm than all three of these guys, including Mitch, who has a pretty good arm too.
Yeah, Bubby, he could throw a ball. Then, of course, I don't know, I guess not, of course. Then there was the Cordell Tomczak era from like 96 to 99. So, you had Tomczak, Cordell, Jim Miller. Then you had Tomczak, Cordell, Mike Quinn, Tomczak, Cordell, Pete Gonzalez. I don't even remember that. That
he was a
character.
7th round draft pick out of Pitt. He was the last pick quarterback I think they had other than Kenny. Actually, I could be wrong about that. I don't know if Tyler Palko ever played for Pitt, but it might have been Pete Gonzalez.
So this is really the Cordell Tomczak era.
Yeah, and again, Cordell won more games than any of these guys, and in another era, Cordell's a truly great quarterback. Like if Cordell played now, it'd probably be like Lamar. I don't know if it'd be like Mahomes, but I mean Cordell had a lot of gifts that couldn't be used in his era. So I think those guys were better than this. Maybe just off of Cordell, and not that Cordell didn't have his struggles.
Okay, well, just keep in mind that, in 96, Steelers were 27th in passing yards, 97th, 23rd, 98, 29th, 99, 26th in passing yards. So
and Cordell was going to run and make up for some of those stats in ways that these guys weren't, though. I mean, this isn't defending Cordell, but he could fly with the ball in his hand.
You're taking Cordell and Tomczak.
I'm taking Cordell and Tomczak and Pete Gonzalez. You have Kent Graham on here too. That one I might start to lean to a little bit less, lean to a little bit more. But you're getting to the worst of all time. It's creeping up.
Well, I heard it's hard to call the Kent Graham an era. That was just the one year, with Cordell and Kent Graham, and they were 29th in yards, 28th in touchdowns. So that single season that competes.
That team was pretty bleak too. Yeah.
Now, do you want to call this an era? The Duck era, as exciting as that season was. Duck, Mason, and Paxton Lynch. I don't even know if
that's my pick for the worst room. It's because the guy's not saying era. He says it's the worst room, and that's the worst room. And also, so I'll take that room as the worst. Yes.
31st in yards, 28th in touchdowns, also 28th in interceptions, which is
incredible. I mean, that's just an impressive stat. And also, too, the reason why is this room that's up on the screen better than that room? Because this Mason Rudolph is better than that Mason Rudolph.
The 2023 Mason Rudolph.
The 2024 Mason Rudolph is far better than the one that split time with Duck. I mean, he got pulled for Duck. This guy managed to beat out the first round draft pick even after he was healthy. This Mason.
Let's compare 2022 and 2023. Pickett, Mason, and Mitchell. In 2022, 24th in yards, 32nd in touchdowns. In 2023, 25th in yards, 30th in touchdowns. Is that must play a part, the touchdown rank, and whether it was a bad QB room?
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's also one of those stats it's easier to look at now objectively. I mean, as you said that, I was thinking about how in prior podcasts we talked about the Steelers' recent doing very well against the Ravens, of which Pickett was certainly a significant part, and hopefully these new quarterbacks can continue this as well. But we talked about how with the Ravens doing so well, that stat doesn't matter up until the moment it does. And I think that's the same way we could talk about this lack of touchdowns as well. Being 32nd in touchdowns, being 30th in touchdowns is great when you're 9-8 and 10-7, up until the moment that really means something.
So you're still your vote is the Duck, Mason, Paxton worst QB room.
Yes, on account of only one of those men still has a job. As a quarterback, Duck is a man that I think is going to find work throughout his life, because I think in many ways that person is truly blessed.
I might endorse this being the worst QB room of all time. Kenny, Mason, and Mitch.
Well, I mean, but also too, it's easy for me to say 2019 because they have 4 or 5 years of hindsight. Who's to say maybe in a few years, maybe this person ends up being correct as well.
Duck is an undrafted rookie. Mace had a first-round grade. Paxton was a first-rounder,
Yes,
right?
first round pick at Denver Broncos.
So, more busted potential. I don't know. And the leader was the undrafted guy. So, all right, to be continued. Worst, who
Indeed.
knows? Because we still have 2024 to get to.
Oh, yes.
Who knows? Who knows? We could outdo ourselves with
It's entirely possible.
the worst QB rooms. Okay, there are more takes. I didn't think we'd go this long on. Up there is. At TGYK, the guys you know. From day one, the Steelers failed Kenny, insisting on having Matt Canada his rookie year, bringing in Trubisky as his mentor, poor O-line, subpar receiving core, keeping Canada too long, signing Russ. The organization never set up their franchise QB. Is this on the, they say everything is 50-50 or both sides have a side. I don't know. Is there two sides to this? I can't see. At this moment, I'm having a hard time seeing Kenny's side to this.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't work out perfectly. I mean, I think certainly it's impossible for something like this for the Steelers coaching and management to be blameless in this. They certainly, I mean, we can now look back on the Canada era as a mistake. Maybe that changes. Maybe we got something out of it. It's hard to sit here right now and say it was a good idea to keep him for as long as they did. I would bump against the subpar receiving core. Like I agree with insisting on having Canada. I can agree with building a poor offensive line, but that's been an issue for many years. The subpar receiving core thing I don't see and I also don't see bringing in Trubisky as his mentor. Trubisky's a fine human being. I mean, it's what I think you're confusing Trubisky, the quarterback, with Trubisky, the mentor, and I think those are two very separate things. Nor do I see signing Russ as a sign that the Steelers failed Kenny. Having an even better, more successful mentor, or better still, someone for Kenny to beat out, is by no means something the Steelers did wrong. What were they supposed to say? We're going to put everything behind you for the rest of this season and not bring in competition? That would harm the rest of the team. That's why I'm fine with them making the moves they did, because they were the best moves that are available right now versus just trying this exact same thing again of putting everything behind Kenny and hoping for the best.
This was the most researched draft pick in his history.
Yes.
That's what they said,
5 years. They had him for 5 years due to the pandemic. There's never been a player the Steelers drafted that they knew better than Kenny Pickett. That is true.
So we discussed a few times in the past year, what's Tomlin's biggest mistake? And I guess this would have to be high on the list. This, or biggest, or what, worst, lowest moment, or so, this would be judging this as the most researched pick in history, and it turning out to be,
and him being unable to turn him into a franchise quarterback. Yeah.
And it feels like a Thanos snap moment. What happened on this phone call that made him become? It turned him from a volunteer to a hostage, and it wasn't. It didn't seem like it was solely signing Russ, because all indication was it was like, yeah, we're gonna play this out and see what happens. But on this phone call, this Tomlin phone call, we went from the heavenly 6-hour meeting between Tomlin and Russ to probably a 60-second phone call between Tomlin and Kenny. That was, everything changed. Everything is different. Everything.
Do we know when the phone call was? Was it Sunday night? Was the phone call before Kenny canceled his workout with the receivers?
We don't have the timeline. I don't
Okay,
think. I
'cause
think
that
we need
to
the
me
Wex
is-
book on this.
Okay, because that to me, that's where the timeline truly shifts. When Kenny sends the group chat to like Deontay and George and Calvin Austin's being like, the practice is off.
This needs to be the next Wex book. This is
Right.
the biggest. This is
You're right.
the biggest moment, I think, since Noel in court, and so that takes us back 50. We're talking 40, close to 50 years. So. Okay, wait, are we done with the QB talk? How about one thing? I'll give him his flowers, not for what he wants his flowers for, but at Mark Madden X. Mark Madden looks like second string pizza, and there's Kenny with this. The snapshot doesn't do it justice here, but there's some cafeteria style pizza here. Wow. Kenny always, one thing knock about Kenny was his palate, and from his favorite food being the buffalo quesadilla, chicken quesadilla, to here he is on the day of the day of the phone call with Tomlin. Maybe here he is getting second-rate cafeteria pizza.
Is he at Dave and Buster's? What is this? This is like Chuck E. Cheese or something. It's now. I don't have my glasses on, so you're gonna have to help me here. There's something green on the pizza. From here, it looks
What did we promise? Oh,
The Insiders, you said.
I know, but I thought I had video to show. Well, nothing is working. We promised Insiders, but first, I wanted to talk about our new quarterback, Justin Fields. Do I have the workout video? I think. Let's see if I can bring it onto the screen here because it's important. AirDrop? No, not AirDrop. AirPlay. That's the ticket. That's the ticket. Let's get. Nope, not gonna. There we go.
There we are.
Here is our new quarterback, Justin Fields, with the workout video. It kind of looks like me doing rehab at physical therapy after I separated my shoulder in my bike accident.
That thing with the cart looks fun. I mean, that's why I sent this to you. That looks like just a good time, kind of like moving out with your hips. Like there's almost a dance element to it. That I don't know where you would try such a thing, but and someone would probably trip over it in the gym. But that looked like a hoot.
Justin Fields is putting in the work. Initially I thought it was Debo's son. I was like, what is that? Not exactly the workout videos. If he's trying to show off, it's like Steeler Nation. You might have to add a little more stacks, Justin, to impress Steeler Nation.
Absolutely. We saw the entire last year of Kenny lifting weights, right? Didn't we see some of that in the last offseason?
Oh, we got some Kenny. Well, Kenny was mostly the outdoor field,
That's right.
with the showing his precision on an empty field.
Right.
But
I mean, I know he bulked up some after getting, lit up by Queen and Roquan Smith and the concussion in his rookie season. But I know he lifted some more weights. But I mean, it's, again, as much as this is pointless and it doesn't matter, it's still better to see the video of the guy working out versus like Justin Fields, saying, "Hey, Steeler Nation," from like the cruise ship or something.
all right, let's move on to Insiders. I promised Insider takes. Some reason this had to come up again after Kenny left. Would at Jerry Dulac. Yada yada yada. Kenny. That came on the heels of Pickett's behavior last season when he refused to dress as the emergency quarterback in Seattle in Week 17. He's kind of slipping that into the bottom of a tweet there, trying to act like bringing this back up again, trying to pass this off as fact when I think that this has been debunked. In fact, I went back to the Dulac chat from January 3rd, where someone asked, this was right after Week 17, and someone asked, did Pickett refuse to be a backup? And Dulac said, here's my answer. Did you see me write it? And implying that if he didn't write it, then it didn't happen. And no, he did not write it back then. Back then, none of the papers would print that until after Kenny issued his denial.
Yeah.
Madden came out with that originally, and then also the Alan Saunders site. But PPG and the Trib did not print that claim until after Kenny, the next day after Kenny was asked about it and had to issue a denial.
Right.
Why are we bringing this back up now? It's like, oh yeah, remember this has been a problem happening for a while now. When no, I don't think this Kenny thing was a problem back then in Week 17.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've read Kovacevic's debunking of this, and if I remember correctly, essentially what he said was that Kenny arrived in the locker room, saw that his shoulder pads and get up was situated in such a way as for him to be the starter, but he hadn't done whatever treatment was necessary through the course of the week for his tightrope operation, what he'd gone through to be able to start that game. So they all talked about it and realized that he would best be served by not getting dressed or whatever ended up happening. That's what Kovacevic's debunking said. So, I mean, I can see how that conversation could have been misconstrued in a million different ways, particularly by those who sought to misconstrue it.
Intentionally, for a malicious intent. It's not for like, could this be a problem? No, it's to get your clicks or to purposely, create a drama. And that's what I said at the time then now, and I still think that that's the time here now. And now people are passing it off like it's fact. Madden was saying, oh, where's my apologies now? Yada yada. But you're right. DK did have the blow by blow, because he's saying, oh, now I have it from a source in the room.
Right.
He also happens to have info that, Mason Rudolph was never offered a contract. Could this same person in the room be the same person who, is giving him information the day that he's not re-signing with Pittsburgh? I think it might be one and the same. I think the person in the room is Mason. So
especially because he appeared on Dayon's podcast with Ramon Foster for multiple days. I mean, that's
So you want to take it from Mason, or do you want to take it from why is Dulac, hopping onto this? And then he's not the only one, because then Alan Saunders, someone was like, bringing up the DK kind of debunk this.
Yes.
And A. Saunders PGH is like, well, he's wrong. Why are they doubling down on this behavior? And then, Kenny was asked about it again in Philadelphia.
Oh yeah, I mean, I will say, I mean, I still find it hard to believe that Kenny did refuse to dress as the third quarterback. I mean, again, I can see if we're really parsing things, if we're going to this conversation where Kenny hasn't gone through whatever he needed to, and they say, okay, we're going to put you in as third quarterback, and I'm saying, I'd prefer not to do that. Do I have to do that? Is that a good idea? And I don't see any of that being would that be best for me and the team? And I can see all of that being misconstrued as the diva for not wanting to do that. By that same token, I don't think in a few days after Kenny demanding a trade that I necessarily have to give Kenny the benefit of the doubt too much in these kinds of things.
No, but when they're intentionally going out of their way to stir this up, I feel, Tomlin has talked about football justice this year, and although Kenny seems to be not on the receiving end, he deserves some football justice over this refusing to dress claim.
I think that's correct. Right? He wasn't. I mean, he demanded to be traded. He requested a trade. He did not seem to want to compete with somebody who could beat out, but it does not seem that he asked to not go into a game and not be dressed for a game if he would have to be relegated to the third quarterback.
And the way that they're doubling down on this, the way I can the only thing how can they justify this still? And I'm thinking, well, maybe Kenny did maybe text a buddy and he's like, I'm not dressing, for that SOB, not like it, just kind of maybe over flexing the situation himself. And that's why they refuse to back down from these reports, because they know it's coming from Kenny himself. And they're like, well, he's the one that was flexing this, where it was really Kenny kind of over posturing.
That could make sense too. I mean, if he even texts a buddy and says, I'm not the third quarterback, that could be taken that same way. This very much feels like a semantic argument. I mean, this is just however this was worded. As you've said, it comes down to these conversations. I mean, the one that, Kenny and Tomlin had here in March, and the one that Kenny and Tomlin, and it seems like Mason had in January and December 31st in Seattle.
Keeping score, insiders, and it's not good. It's not good. It's not good so far. Only, who's there good? It's Caballi has been on the bad side of things. Dulac, he had the Russell Wilson into town. Not that was a huge scoop,
We have a whole clip from last week of Caballi saying the Kenny Pickett era is over, and you and I arguing against it too.
Well, yeah, but that was foreshadowing of a different sort, I guess. That was more Shakespearean foreshadowing.
That was a Shakespearean tragedy, no less, not comedy.
All right, insiders, enough. I don't want to talk about you every week, but then when I'm the one keeping score. I'm not. I'm the only one. I'm the only one. Let's talk about con season, because we are in the middle of it. All right. But some revisionist history. All of a sudden, this has been the narrative the last, couple months even. At Tommy Jaggy, the final 5 years of the Kevin Colbert era were a disaster, and this picture has been going around of all the first round picks going back to Terrell Edmonds, and he's no longer on the team, and Devin Bush, he's no longer on the team, and Najee Harris, they may not pick up his fifth-year option. Okay, is that a miss? What What is the Kevin? Oh, is it too soon to judge the Kevin Colbert era yet?
Well, I mean, it's I think 2 of those years. What was it? 2017 and 2018. There are no players left on the team from those drafts, so I think we can see those maybe 5 years down the line. And it's not like they won a championship in that time, so we can see them as less successful. What I think this is, and it was. As we kind of said at the time, and it's easy to forget, a lot of those drafts were seen as, hey, we're gearing up everything to put it around Ben one last time. And that was the rationale behind Najee, and that was the rationale behind Freiermuth, and it didn't work. I mean, it was what you tried everything to try and win with Ben, and then when that didn't work, it's going to seem like a kind of a bust thing. And also, the last pick he made being gone too, the potential franchise quarterback, I think it's added to it. I think it's not so much as a failure as the mission as it didn't succeed in its mission. Colbert's going into the Hall of Fame if they do it for general managers. He has the 2 championships and the legacy of great players. But at the end, it didn't work out as he'd hoped.
I mean, Najee, it seemed like that was telegraphed.
And
in the
I also
sky.
think they're going to pick up his 5th-year option, too. I think that's inaccurate.
I felt that was telegraphed from the sky. It was,
Yes.
So to go back now and say, that was a bad move. Was it? He's the leading all-purpose yards, more than not since Franco or something.
Right. And it's important to remember the context of when they drafted Najee. It's because, Connor couldn't stay healthy, and they'd had such terrible luck in getting mid-round draft pick running backs. Everyone's like, you can get a running back at the end of the draft. No, they couldn't. They couldn't find one. Benny Snell was not going to be a franchise running back. Jalen Samuels.
And, I mean, people want to call Terrell Edmonds a failure. He started every game he played pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
The Steelers chose not to keep him around, but to call him a failure, to call that a failure of a, Colbert era or a Colbert pick, it's kind of like, not everything is going to be a Pro Bowl. There's only, maybe a dozen Pro Bowlers out of any draft class any given year. So because you don't get one doesn't mean that your first round pick who started, 140 games was a failure,
Right. I mean, and the value might not have been there for a first round pick, but he was absolutely a competent football player, a long-term starter. I mean, they could easily sign him back at any moment. I don't know if they're going to now. This Elliott guy seems like he can do the job much better, and he's younger. But I mean, it's, Edmonds is certainly out there now if they want to sign him for cheap.
And obviously Devin Bush was a trade up, and that was, seemed to be consensus all-decade player, everyone thought. He was a captain, he was a leader. Turns out he's not those things. So, yeah, I'll say that was a big whiff, but that was the biggest investment in a pick since Polamalu.
Yes, and even bigger investment than Polamalu, if I remember correctly. Yeah, no, I mean, the shock waves of that are still being felt. That's that failure. That's why they had to go sign Queen.
So you're endorsing disaster.
I think I just think they had a goal and they just didn't reach it. The goal was, let's make one last run with the big old cowboy, and when that didn't work out, it's let's build a foundation for the new era with Kenny, and that didn't work out either. So it's hard for me to say failure. I mean, other teams did worse in the draft, but it wasn't up to the standard of Colbert's greatness, why he's going into the Hall. And hey, nobody does this forever. It's so hard to do.
Not good enough.
Not good enough.
There you go.
Bottom line. All right. How about one last thing on con season here? Let's go to @Real John Walker the Fourth. 2023 Steelers still without a deal. We'll quickly go through these names. If we hit upon someone that you want to bring back to the squad, chime in there. Patrick Peterson.
I could see bringing him back if they can't, if they can't get an early round corner.
Mason Cole still have no center.
Yeah, I mean they're gonna have to find a center somewhere, but I think I'd be surprised if they brought Cole back at this point.
Keanu Neal. Levi Wallace, Marcus Golden.
I could see that. Golden or Dupree, someone like that. Golden did fine. If they can get Golden on a decent deal, he'd be a great 4 again. I kind of do hope they sign him.
Quan Alexander.
If he's healthy. Bring him back in the middle of August like they did last year.
Special teams ace James Pierre.
I think he can do better at this point. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe he could. I mean, you're gonna have to put special teamers in somewhere. If you end up using all those late round picks to trade up, maybe you do bring Pierre back.
We still don't know if the other Avatar corner can play special teams yet,
or if he can play period if he heals.
Yeah. Chandon Sullivan.
Yeah.
We got that corner right, and if you bring back Pat Pete, that's your three corners there.
Yeah.
Blake Martinez, Miles Boykin, special teams.
I was going to say, I could see Miles Boykin on special teams. They better be quite convinced they can get some great dudes on special teams, because it seems like Miles Boykin provided value.
Shame on me for not knowing if Van Jefferson plays special teams.
I don't
or
think
not.
he does. I thought I read that somewhere.
Okay. How about special teams moment of the year? Godwin Iwabuke.
I mean, they found the guy on like a Tuesday, so it seems like you could sign him again like that. But I don't know. I mean, it's a guy that the Steelers don't sign. I hope he finds a job somewhere. He clearly is a student of the game.
Right, you got to have another running back there somewhere, right? And we need 90 at camp.
Yes.
How about Elijah Riley?
It seemed like you heard his name more earlier in the season than you did later. Maybe that's off of an injury that I don't remember, but I could see them, bringing back. It seems like they signed a bunch of safeties, and then they let go of a bunch of safeties. So I could see them bringing Riley back. It seems like he's kind of been on a ping pong back and forth thing on camp for a minute now.
Now we got two names that I don't seem to recognize: Chappelle Russell and Rennell Wren.
Well, you and I don't know them kind of implies why maybe they don't have jobs.
But speaking of a safety, I might bring back. What about Eric Rowe?
I was thinking that same thing. Boy, whatever. I'm not saying he was Troy Polamalu back there, but I don't know if they win some of those games without him. Particularly in Seattle and all that. And he played well against the Ravens too. Boy, that's a guy. If he doesn't have a job by camp, I'd love to see what he's doing.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, six out of this is a list of more than 6.
Yeah, so I would say 20, maybe a little over 20. But that's also before free agency. That's also before OTAs when they bring in their undrafted free agent guys. So this list, I imagine that 6 is going to get pared down even further.
Over under 6 coming 6.
I'm going to say under. I'm saying under. I'm going to bet under. Bring back.
All right, I'm gonna just say over, just to.
Sure.
I think 6 is actually spot on. Actually, I think the 6 that we said there. But you know what? You know what? As time goes on, I'm like, hey, let's bring back Mason Cole. Whatever. Like,
I mean, it's the fact that everyone that seems to be a competent center already has a job. Like, it's if you click on those things that say like what centers are available, like Mason Cole's the top. Like it's and again, who knows what the Athletic is telling you? But man, that is it does seem like they're getting into a position where you hate to see them going into the draft having to get a center.
Or bring back Iron Chef J.C. Hausenhauer. Okay, I said that. Oh, I forgot the mock. Well, you know what? We're going to have to bring the song next week because I don't have the mock.
Hey, we resisted as long as we could.
But it is Mock the Mock season, and I will remind you of our philosophy is that you can't learn anything from mock drafts except one thing. And it pretty much like the movie Pi, where they discovered a trend in the stock market. I've studied mock drafts long enough to know that if you have a 50% consensus on a position, that will be what the Steelers will draft. So last year we had 2 years ago it was quarterback. We had the 3. It was Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, or Desmond Ridder, I believe, were the 3 most mocked people, and that formed a 50% consensus in the mock drafts. And then last year it was between tackle and cornerback, and so we ended up, if you count pick 32 as even though it's a second round, first round, whatever.
Right.
So that was actually 2 hits. Both hit actually because tackle and cornerback were the 2 most mocked. So if 2 years is is it a happy accident? 3 years is a postulate. Is that all it takes? I don't know.
Tradition.
Is it tradition? I guess, but. So we're studying all the mock drafts, and this week, since I set the alert on, I think I set it on maybe St. Patrick's Day.
Okay.
We've got 3, 5, 7, 11, 12, 13, 15 mock drafts. All right, we're starting off. That's kind of heavy flow for March, but I guess it is already the end of March. And with 4 mock drafts, the leading candidate is offensive tackle from Georgia, Amarius Mims. Tackle first round? What do you think? I think Dan Moore might have something to say about that.
I mean, Dan Moore might have something to say with that to start in time, but I mean, it's remember now the Steelers are going to start as quarterback a player who this year will apparently break the all-time record for most times being sacked, beating both Brady and Roethlisberger. So it's so that offensive line has got to get even better quickly.
Oh, I didn't.
Everything hurts.
I didn't realize that Ben is going to get already knocked down from his first.
Well, it's him and Brady are close, but I guess Russell is right there, but like 200 games behind them less played. Like, it's some bizarre stat how many times Russell gets sacked. So that's why, maybe hopefully the rivalry of Myles Garrett versus Dan Moore comes to an end this season.
2 Georgia tackles? That would be kind of interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, but Georgia is the new what Alabama was, what Miami was, what USC was. I mean, it's now become the premier program.
The next on the mock list with 3 of our 15 entries is wide receiver from LSU. This is including Mel Kiper's pick. Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver from LSU. It's been, since Plex. Was that the last first round or Santonio Holmes? Last first round.
It would have been Santonio, but that shows just how rare that is. I mean, it's and Plex came a couple years after Troy Edwards. It showed you why it can be so difficult to get this right in the first round. But also, hey, wide receiver is so much harder to acquire now than it was in the days of Santonio. I mean, the market for these guys, what you got to pay them is just ridiculous. So, I mean, that's way, way less against the idea of drafting a wide receiver in the first round than I used to be.
I can't remember Santonio's history, but wide receivers in the second round and beyond have a history of not getting starting play their rookie season.
Right.
So I'm guessing if we take one at 20, that is going to be an exception to that rule.
I would imagine. It's then again, Arthur Smith's offense plays with fewer wide receivers on the field typically, right? So, I mean, they're going to sign someone. Maybe they have by the time you're watching this. So that does mean that person would have to compete with them for playing time. But I mean, this is also a different era where, you got to get as much out of these guys as possible when they're young, when you're not paying a franchise quarterback franchise money. So I imagine you will see him on the field.
That begins mock draft season.
You resisted as long as you could. You did great work staying away from it as long as you could.
Yeah, I remember 2 years ago, I was looking back in January, only to realize that every mock draft from January is like the least accurate at all. Can you imagine doing a mock draft even just 7 days ago? Just 7 days ago.
Oh, man.
Okay, I think that is what we've been talking about. What do you think, Coach?
That's what we've been talking about.
Okay. The conversation continues on social media, if you must. I am on TikTok. I am at Kyle Kreis. Greg, how about yourself? Where are you?
Unfortunately, you can find me on Instagram at Greg Benevent, B as in boy, E-N-E, V as in Victor, E-N-T.
Coming up on April 4th, my return to Blank Slate on the Game Show Network. If you watched the one in February, that was actually my best performance. So now you get to see my worst. Now you get to see me go full Pickett. Otherwise, if you're in the Burbank area, or Los Angeles area, not even. You can see us perform at Flappers Comedy Club in Burbank on Saturday night, every Saturday night, until the end of time.
Honest to God.
Until we make Andy McDowell fall in love with us, and then we can escape. Okay, until next week, when we have 2 new quarterbacks. Keep listening to your coach.
Be their best selves. That's going to be required.
Stay in school.